Every time the market crashes, you tell yourself you'll buy the dip. Then the dip arrives and you freeze. Your finger hovers over the buy button. Something inside you says wait. And while you wait, the market recovers without you. This isn't bad luck. It isn't a bad strategy. It's your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. And it's costing you money every single time. Here's the thing about the human brain. It wasn't designed for financial markets. It was designed for survival on a savanna 200,000 years ago. Back then, if something looked dangerous, running was the smart move. If everyone around you was panicking, you panicked too. The crowd knew something. Ignoring the crowd got you eaten. So your brain learned one simple rule. Do what everyone else is doing and do it fast. Markets didn't exist then. But that ancient wiring still runs your portfolio today. In 2008, the S&P 500 lost more than 50% of its value. Millions of ordinary investors watched their accounts bleed for months before finally doing what every instinct told them to do: sell. They got out near the bottom. Then, over the next decade, the market returned roughly 400%. Most of them missed it. They bought back in when it felt safe again. Near the top. Buy high, sell low. Repeat. This isn't stupidity. Behavioral economists have a name for it: loss aversion. In the 1970s, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky ran a series of experiments that changed how we understand financial decisions. They found that losing $100 feels psychologically almost twice as painful as gaining $100 feels good. The math is equal. The emotional experience is not. Your brain treats losses as emergencies and gains as background noise. So when your portfolio drops 15%, your brain doesn't calculate. It catastrophizes. It stops being a rational investor and starts being a frightened animal trying to prevent further pain. What does it do? It sells. And what happens when prices rise and everyone around you is getting rich? Your brain notices something else: the fear of being left out. Psychologists call this FOMO, the fear of missing out. But the mechanism is ancient. It's the same social pressure that made your ancestor follow the tribe. If everyone is rushing towards something, there must be a reason. You feel compelled to join, you buy in, usually right before the top. The dot-com bubble of the late 1990s is the clearest case study in financial history. Between 1995 and 2000, the Nasdaq Composite Index rose nearly 400%. Every month brought news stories of overnight millionaires. Ordinary people who had never bought a single stock opened brokerage accounts and poured in their savings. The party felt like it would never end. Then in March 2000, it ended. The index collapsed by nearly 80% over the next 2 years. The people who bought in during the final frenzy, the ones who felt the most FOMO, lost the most. They weren't foolish people. They were human people. There's a mechanism underneath all of this that most investors never see. Markets are not a neutral playing field. They are an ecosystem. And in any ecosystem, something feeds on something else. When retail investors panic and sell, professional traders and institutional funds are buying. When retail investors pile in out of FOMO near the top, those same institutions are quietly distributing their holdings, selling into the excitement you're creating. This isn't a conspiracy, it's just incentives. If you know that most people will panic at the bottom and chase at the top, you build a strategy around that predictable behavior. Your emotional reactions are not a bug in the system. They are a feature that someone else is profiting from. The GameStop short squeeze of early 2021 turned this dynamic briefly upside down. A group of retail investors coordinated to squeeze institutional short sellers, driving the stock from under $20 to nearly $500 in a matter of days. For a moment, the crowd had the power. But look at what happened next. Most retail investors who bought in during the peak, drawn in by the media frenzy and the fear of missing the biggest trade of their lives, bought between $200 and $480. The stock collapsed. The institutions that had exited were gone. The individuals holding near the top watched it fall back towards single digits within months. Even when the crowd wins, the crowd loses. So what do you actually do about any of this? The first step is accepting that you cannot turn off these instincts. You cannot train yourself to feel nothing when your account drops 30%. Willpower is not the solution. Structure is. The investors who consistently outperform their own emotional reactions don't try to beat the feeling. They remove the decision. They use automated contributions that buy on a fixed schedule regardless of what the market is doing. A strategy called dollar cost averaging. They set rules before the panic arrives, not during it. They decide in advance. If this drops 20%, I will buy more, not sell. They write it down. They treat it like a contract with their future self. Warren Buffett once said the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. He wasn't being poetic, he was describing a mechanism. Every time you act on fear or FOMO, you are the impatient party making the transfer. Your phone is designed to keep your attention. Financial news is designed to create urgency. Social media shows you only the people winning, not the ones quietly sitting still. Every layer of your environment is optimized to make you react. And every reaction that isn't planned in advance is likely costing you. The market will crash again. Something will come along that feels completely different from anything before it. The losses will feel permanent, the fear will feel rational, and somewhere in that moment, you'll feel the pull to sell. And then, months or years later, when the recovery is almost complete and everything feels safe again, you'll feel the pull to buy back in. That feeling, the one that told you to wait when the dip arrived, is the same feeling that has cost investors trillions of dollars across centuries of financial markets. Every time you check your phone to see if your portfolio went up, your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. The question is whether you let it make the trade.